Nerves. They scare us, they worry us. No matter where we go, no matter what we try to do, much like a breakup, they always find a way of catching up to us. But the worst thing about nerves in general is that it prevents us from sharing ideas that matter, from sharing our ideas with the world, from sharing ideas that people care about and need to hear. And that's actually why I started Master Talk, so that we don't let this fear get in the way of us delivering exceptional presentations. But here's the thing that you need to keep in mind. Even exceptional presenters like me are scared all the time when we present. I'm not that much different than you are. But the big difference is that I never let nerves get in my way when I give any type of presentation whatsoever. And in this week's episode of Master Talk, we're going to discover why. Hi everyone, I hope you're having a fantastic week. Brendan from Master Talk here, your go-to channel to mastering your talk. And on this week's special episode of Master Talk, I'm going to be covering stage fright and how I overcame it so that you can overcome yours. So let's get into it. If there's anything that you take away from this week's episode of Master Talk, it's this. I don't care how good you are as a speaker. You could be Tony Robbins, Les Brown, Brendan, anybody. It doesn't matter. Everybody has fears. Everybody is nervous about something. And public speaking isn't any different. But we never, ever let those fears get in the way of us presenting. And that's what you need to learn in this week's episode. So let's get into it. Number 1, care enough to crush your fear. The first thing that we need to understand when examining stage fright is understanding the why. Why are we scared? Is it because we want to be the odd one out? Are we scared of becoming that? Are we scared of what people will think of us? Are we scared that we're going to mess up the presentation? Are we going to be scared that we didn't prepare enough? For me, out of all of those fears, the biggest one that's always haunted me personally was the audience. And more specifically, wasting their time. In other words, I want to deliver value to them relentlessly. I'll give you the best example. There's a lot of keynotes that I give, in lunch hour and the afternoon. But a large majority of those actually happen to be in the morning, on the weekend on top of that. So imagine on a Saturday morning at 8 a.m., you have to come and watch me present. Give like a 1 hour keynote or 1 hour presentation. And there's so many other people in that year where those students or that group of people are also being coached by. And those people are high-level executives, they work at big corporations. So I always feel like the odd one out. I don't want them to say after I present that, hey, you know what? This was a waste of my time. Why did Brendan come here and present to us today? That is the fear that has haunted me my whole life as a public speaker. Delivering value, trying to do so, and failing in that regard. Because I wasted their time, I wasted them coming out, waking up at 6 a.m. and giving this presentation. But it's also the secret to my success. Because I believe that there's 2 ways of overcoming your public speaking fear in general. The first one is if you're so egotistical and you care so much about yourself that you just don't care about anyone else in the audience and you just present, so you're not scared. But the second one that I think relates to most people, and that relates to me personally, is the idea that you care so much about the audience that you need to deliver to make sure you don't waste their time. So that thing that scared me the most about public speaking and being afraid of my audience and being afraid of all those things is also the secret to my success. Another way of looking at this is my ability to care so much about my audience greatly outweighs any types of nerves that I can get from a presentation. I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm presenting to a crowd of, let's say, 50 students. And in that crowd, I have the option of either being scared or option B, not being scared. In not being scared, what ends up happening is they get a better experience out of the workshop. If I was scared, then I would deliver less value to them because they would see me nervous, they would start to question a lot of the things that I'm saying, and doubt a lot of the content that I'm providing. In other words, to put a bow on this, I've wired my brain in a way that any weakness that I show my audience is directly correlated to them having a less better experience from my workshops. That's why I'm so obsessive about crushing my nerves, because I care so much about my audience. So in that regard, to make it work for you, you need to either care so much about your audience that you take the time to crush every fear that you have in public speaking, or you have to care so much about yourself that you just don't care about your audience. I think it's much better to care a lot about your audience, right? Because it's much easier for you to overcome. Another way of looking at this is when I did case competitions in university. For every competition I did, I probably practiced at least 10, 15 times before giving the presentation, the actual one, like the real one. Everything before that was practices. Like a weekly soccer practice for the big game, it's the same thing. But the way I looked at it was very different for most of the delegates, because like I said in previous videos, these judges aren't actually the people from the real company, right? So why did I care so much about delivering value to them and giving them the best presentation that they've ever seen in their lives? The reason is simple. Those judges are high-level executives, they're very, very busy folks, and they're spending a Saturday that they could be spending with their friends, their family, their loved ones, and they're taking that precious time that they have away outside of work for us, for the students that are coming in and delivering presentations so that they can give feedback to them. That means a lot to me, and I have a lot of respect for that. So if I'm going to spend 4 months practicing for a competition, I'm going to go into that competition and blow their minds out. Like, I am going to deliver so much value that that team of judges goes, wow, this Saturday was a Saturday well spent. Number 2, embrace your audience. If you remember from past episodes of MasterTalk, specifically the one about theater and what I learned from it, I talked a lot about embracing disaster, because people in improv are so resilient to changes that happen, whether it's someone sniffing or someone coughing or anything of the sort. They're so resilient to that type of stuff, or those types of things in general, that they don't get worried about it. They just embrace disaster and let it flow. On that caveat, you have to always keep in mind when embracing your audience, which is my second tip, that you're there to add value to them in as much way as possible. In other words, it's not really your presentation. It's the interpretation of how they want their presentation to be. I'll give you an example. There are some presentations I give, like my keynotes for MasterTalk, where I just talk for an hour and nobody wants to participate because they're like introverted, they're shy, they're tired. There's other presentations that I give, the exact same one, by the way, where those students or groups of people or executives or however you want to call it, they like interrupting a lot because they want to add value, they want to add additional tips, they want to give their opinion a lot. And I don't just tell them to wait until the end for questions, right? I do what works for them. A third example that you'll probably like a lot is I remember when I was presenting to a group of high schoolers, I was essentially comparing two different slides, one where I present without silences and one I present with silences, just to demonstrate to the group that silences sound better in presentations. You need to master them. But generally what happens when I present the one without silences is I ask the group, hey, out of 10, what did you think? And generally people, they raise their hand, they say 6 or 5 or 7, and they explain why. But in this specific situation, there was this girl in the back, okay, let's call her Julia, and Julia just didn't raise her hand, she just yelled 6, right? Like really loud, right? So instead of being frightened by that, I said, absolutely, you're right. Why is it a 6? And then Julia would elaborate as to why that was the case. In other words, what I'm trying to get at here is, since it was her presentation and not mine, whatever my audience wants to do with my presentation, I always let them do it. Because the second I started building a relationship with Julia, since it was a really tough crowd, by the way, everyone else in the audience looked at us and said, hey, this is really cool, I want to participate. And that's why I had the highest participation rate out of every workshop that was given in the year, because the audience trusted me, they loved me, and they understood the presentation was about them and not me. That's why embracing your audience in that angle will help remove any fear or nerves that you have, because at the end of the day, you're there to add value to them, and any nerves are just things that you don't have to worry about because your focus is them and not yourself. So embrace whatever they do. Number 3. So we talked about embracing the audience. We talked a lot about caring to crush your fear. But the most important thing that you need to hear is my most important tip, which is to be relentlessly you. Look, at the end of the day, guys, Anyone could be anything, okay? Everyone is different. Everyone is unique, which means everyone can't please everyone. I could spend years mastering my audience, despite how religiously obsessed I am about it, and you should be as well. At the end of the day, when it comes to audience mastery, you can't get everyone in the room to love you. At best, maybe you can get 80-90%. But the thing that you need to keep in mind, despite the 5 or 10% that are critical of your presentation, that don't like it, that call you names, that hate on you, you need to focus on the 85 to 90% that you're there to serve, that you're there to help, right? Because by being relentlessly you, you start to develop your own unique style to public speaking that not everyone will like. But it'll be so uniquely you that I believe the people who are actually there, who want value from your presentation, whether it's about public speaking, whether it's about a hiking trip that you took, whether it's about learning how to canoe, whatever your thing is, most of the audience is there to listen to you. Or else why would they come to the presentation? That's why if you try to just be a people pleaser and not really be who you are as a speaker, right? You won't be able to achieve that. You'll just let the critics get the best of you. You'll be nervous because you won't be presenting like the way you want to or the way you want to deliver it. And at the end of the day, you do the worst thing, which is not adding value to your audience, right? Take me, for example. I'm a specific case because I've mastered the craft in a way that I'm a shapeshifter. So shapeshifter, and how I define it anyways, is a term I created, is someone who can change their energy levels based on what their audience is, what their expectation is, and who they are. So for example, if my audience is like very quiet and they're very shy, I tone it down a bit, you know? I don't go up to them in their face and I ask them questions. It's more just, hey, what do you think, right? But if it's someone like Julia who's very like energetic, right, then I mirror that energy. But my main style as a communicator is I love being loud. And I love it because I get people's attention and I love it when people listen to me. See, a lot of people might find that condescending and hypocritical. But the point I'm driving here is that's me and I own it. And that's not you, or it could be you. But the point of all this is by being relentlessly you, I believe that if you care enough about your audience, you'll be able to master your audience, master your talk, and never let nerves get in the way of you giving any sort of presentation. Remember, if there's anything that you take away from this week's episode, it's this. I don't care how great you are as a speaker. I don't care how many people you've presented in front of. Everyone has nerves, and I'm no exception to the rule. But I never let nerves get in the way of any presentation I give, and I believe through this video and these lessons, you won't too. I hope you had a great week. If you enjoy this episode of MasterTalk, be sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. And I'll leave you off with this. If there's one person that you know, and I'm sure there is, that's scared of public speaking, that's scared about getting on stage, send them this video so that they'll realize that even the best in the business are scared as well. Take care, everyone. Have a fantastic week, and I'll see you next time.